Now the New York Times is now smearing journalists who actually tell the truth about Ukraine. They've been doing it. This is their MO, right? So they got this guy Benjamin Norton, who's been on the show. He says, yeah, they claim that a coup sponsored by the United States government took place in Ukraine in 2014. So this is the New York Times saying that this guy claimed that a coup sponsored by the United States government took place in Ukraine in 2014. That is what happened. That's not a claim. That's a fact. And so which the New York Times has reported themselves. And so what the New York Times is doing here is trying to smear and discredit anti-war journalists so they can then shut him down on Twitter, Facebook, or wherever else they want. And then Twitter and Facebook will point to this New York Times article to say this guy spreads propaganda, even though he's not. Do you see what they're doing here? Because that's what they're doing. Okay. This is what they said. They said that journalist, this is the New York Times talking about that journalist, they said he first explained the conspiracy theory on RT, although it was later picked up by the Chinese state media and tweeted by accounts like Frontline. In a March interview with China's state broadcaster CCTV, trumpeted as an exclusive, Mr. Norton said the United States, not Russia, was to blame for Russia's invasion. You know who else says that? Noam Chomsky and every other scholar who looked into it, including Henry Kissinger and the former Secretary of Defense under George Bush. They all say it. It's not just Ben Norton, but this is how the New York Times makes anybody who tells the truth about war seem like a discredited conspiracy theorist. And here's what they tweeted out. They tweeted out, this was in the article. This was in the article by the New York Times trying to smear anti-war journalists. And they tweeted out this was the China State Media's a Twitter account. And they just put a red line through it. And this is a tweet of a video. Now, what the New York Times didn't do was make this clickable. Normally, you make it clickable so people could watch that video. They didn't. Why do you think the New York Times didn't make this clickable? And so what they said was that he's pushing conspiracy theories on Ukraine. They're saying that the fact that a coup, which was instituted by the United States, the Maidan coup in 2014, where Victoria Nuland, we have a phone recording of her picking the next leader of Ukraine. The New York Times is saying that's all a conspiracy theory. Why? Because it's not. Because that's actually true, and they want to discredit anybody who tells you the truth about the war. So I just want to read this to you. It says, as the United States escalates its new Cold War on China and Russia, leading newspapers are dropping any pretense of fidelity to basic journalistic principles and enlisting as loyal foot soldiers in the information war. Those of us who are independent journalists who refuse to dutifully toe the U.S. regime's line are in their crosshairs. And that's what the point of this is. So now Twitter and Facebook can point to this article in the New York Times, and when they ban that independent journalist who's anti-war and say, that's why, look, he's spreading Russian disinformation. Here's another one. This is from Foreign Policy magazine. Russia is mimicking open source intelligence methods to discredit Bucha atrocities. So the same war crimes that they want to say Russia committed, it says, despite Russians' flimsy defense, some Westerners have nevertheless chosen to believe it. No, we haven't chosen to believe it. We're following where the facts lead. Why is Russia's defense flimsy? Because there's physical evidence instead of the New York Times recreating it out of thin air with a graphics department. That's why it's flimsy, I guess.
You don't even have a digital recreation? That's not evidence.
So now they're saying that the evidence that Russia is presenting, saying that they didn't commit which you can't prove a negative, but they're trying to make them. And then they say Michael Tracy, who's just a guest on the show earlier in the show, Mike, who was over there in Poland and UK reporting on Ukraine, he says writer Michael Tracy tweeted to his 240,000 followers that the photos were war propaganda and cast doubt on their authenticity. So there's that. They're trashing independent journalists, discrediting them and smearing them as conspiracy theorists for pushing back against war propaganda, which is what they're supposed to do, which tells you that the people at Foreign Policy magazine are just dutiful stewards of the military-industrial complex, which is what they are. But they want to discredit people like Michael Tracy and me and anybody who's anti-war so they can get us censored. That's what this is about.